Question. I have a certain spiritual experience, but I proceed from the assumption that I should not talk about it if someone can't realize this without words. That's exactly where the root of my question lies, the question that torments me. Matthew 7:6. How applicable is it to the present time? Do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you in pieces. Well, it's an important question, of course, for many spiritual people. And I have over the years, and I've of course experienced myself, that many spiritual people are very reluctant to talk about not only their spiritual experiences, but also their spiritual beliefs. Because, of course, we get a very negative reaction from other people. So many spiritual people that I know have experienced getting a very negative reaction from Christians who can be very, very judgmental. You just see some of the comments to one of my videos about Christ. This is New Age theology, for example. So what Christians love to do is they look for something that's different than their interpretation of the Bible, and then they label it. And once they label it, they don't have to talk about it. But what some of them will also do, they'll become very aggressive in putting you down. And of course, when people are aggressive trying to put somebody down, it's because they're insecure. They are not really firm in their beliefs, because otherwise you wouldn't be threatened by other people believing something differently. So they can become very aggressive because they want to at least silence you or prove you wrong. Then we have on the other side of the spectrum in society, we have the materialists. And they can also be very dismissive of any kind of spiritual belief. It's just New Age mumbo jumbo, it's just superstition. And they can also be very aggressive. Why? Because they too are insecure and they have a need to prove to others. So I have, of course, experienced both myself and in other people that when we first find the spiritual path, especially if we find the path when we are young, we are also insecure. I mean, the first many years I was on the path, I felt very insecure, and I didn't want to have a negative reaction from people. And after having experienced that negative reaction a certain amount of time, I tended to keep quiet about my spiritual beliefs. So I very much understand the reaction here. But I think that, the question is, how applicable is this quote from Jesus in our present time, that we shouldn't cast our pearls before swine? And I think things have changed, and they have changed because of mass communication. Because you could say that if you take this quote literally, you should say, I shouldn't have created my YouTube channel. And many other spiritual people who have YouTube channels and talk about their spiritual beliefs, you shouldn't have done this. Because on YouTube, you don't know who is finding your videos. And it could be both dogs and swines and people who are not very nice. So, so I think things have changed because, at Jesus' time, you had the option, and of course you still do, that you could be very selective in who you talk to. And therefore you could feel people out, and you could get to a point where you knew them, you knew that they were open to what you were saying, then you could share it with them. And if you sensed that they weren't open, you could just back off. And you can, of course, still do that at the personal level. But we live in a time of mass communication, and when you put something on a website where everybody can find it, and you put something on YouTube where everybody can find it, you can't control who's finding it. And so I think you just have to, as I've talked about in several of my breakthrough videos, we all have a life plan. And not all people have in their life plan to stand out publicly and talk about their spiritual beliefs. But I think many spiritual people have it as part of their life plan to talk about their spiritual beliefs, because that's really the only way that we're going to shift from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age, where the challenge, as I've said before, is to integrate spirituality with everyday life. And so, in other words, you have this old model that you've seen over the past 2,000 years in a way, that you go to church on Sunday, and then the rest of the week you just pretty much live the way you want to live. maybe following certain rules. But so there's a set of outer requirements. So in other words, you have a separation between church and state, between your daily life and your spiritual activities. And of course, many spiritual people, they have the same. But what we are meant to do in the age of Aquarius is we are meant to integrate our spirituality in our everyday lives. And if you are really living your spirituality in your everyday life instead of just doing it at certain times or by going to a certain spiritual organization or whatever you do, if you're living it in your daily life, why wouldn't you talk about it? But see, I think what we have to do as part of this process is we have to overcome this desire to be missionaries, to convert other people to our spiritual beliefs. In order to do that, and I've talked about this in several videos, we have to overcome the idea that there's only one true spiritual movement or one true spiritual guru. There's only one truth. Because what really matters is the transformation of consciousness. And you have to meet people where they're at in consciousness. So, the questioner says, I had a certain spiritual experience, but I have the assumption I shouldn't talk about it if they can't realize it without words. But you see, what can people realize without words? How do you communicate a spiritual experience to them if you don't talk about it? You can then say, okay, well, I'm not going to share with them. I'm just going to wait and maybe they'll have their own experience and maybe they won't. But I don't believe that's what's meant to happen. What we're meant to do in the Aquarian age is we're going to, as I said, live our spirituality. That means you talk about your spiritual beliefs. But I'm not saying when you have this deep spiritual experience that you necessarily have to tell everybody about this. You can still be selective. You can talk somewhat about your spiritual beliefs or your spiritual outlook without sharing your deepest experiences until you know people. But again, if you feel that it's part of your divine plan to share your experience and put it on the internet, then you just do it. And so the first hurdle we have to overcome is this idea that we have to convert everybody to believe what we believe or to come into our spiritual movement. But we have a right to share our beliefs and our vision and our teachings. Of course we have a right to do this and let people do with it. What I'm saying is we need to set them free to believe it or not believe it. But the second thing we have to do, which is like the alpha and the omega. So the omega aspect is we have to set ourselves free from their reaction. And this is what I talk about in many videos. We have these subconscious selves that cause us to react to other people. And of course, we have a very, very powerful subconscious self that wants us to be accepted and that wants approval from others. And this means that if we put ourselves out there publicly and we don't get approval, we get criticism or negative reaction, we may feel very bad about ourselves. But the way I look at this is very simple. That is a fantastic opportunity to see these subconscious selves and overcome them. I mean, I have been in the public view by creating websites since 2002. And I have met, of course, many people, and I've gotten reactions online, but I also met people personally who were very negative and very challenging and very rejecting of me personally or what I taught or so forth and so on. But when I look back at it, of course it was difficult, of course it was painful, but it was also a fantastic opportunity to see things in my own psychology, to see these reactionary patterns that come from these subconscious selves. And I can truly say, if I hadn't dared to come out of the closet as a spiritual person in 2002, I wouldn't have had anywhere near the growth that I've had in these past so many years. I've grown tremendously from putting myself out there, casting my pearls wherever they landed, and just looking at my own reaction to this, and then going after that reaction until I saw the self, I saw the illusion, and I could let it go. And that means today I'm much more free to express myself, and I don't have to feel bad about people rejecting me. What's the big deal? as I've said in several videos, I can only put out there what I see based on my current level of consciousness. And the way people react to it is based on their level of consciousness. And there will be people who can't see what I see and who will therefore reject what I'm saying. But why should that disturb me? Unless I have a subconscious self that wants me to be right. I mean, look at it this way. Just look at how different people's opinions are. You take any topic, you can find people who hold completely opposite opinions. There are people who believe the earth is flat. And so what I'm saying is, you can't put anything out there in the public that everybody is going to agree with. It just can't be done. So I actually look at the whole phenomenon of, because I think, and I've said this before, that I think that one of the most significant developments in modern society is precisely that so many people are putting themselves out there in the public view in front of other people. And there are many reasons why this is important, and part of it is that we are people who are sharing themselves, they are demonstrating to other people that you can share yourself. But one of the main reasons why it's so important is that those who put themselves out there, they get a chance to see their own reactions and overcome their own psychology. And I know several people who have had blogs or who have YouTube channels that say, I've grown tremendously from this because I had to look at my own reaction. So that's why I would say that in today's age, many people are meant to really put ourselves out there. And I know Jesus said this, don't cast your pearls before swine. And as I said, it's valid for these very deep personal inner experiences, perhaps. But Jesus also gave the parable about the sower who goes out and sows the seeds, and some fall on rocky ground and they don't sprout. So he also said, he didn't say, just be silent and sit in your cave and meditate. He said, go out there, spread the seeds, and, as the saying goes, let the chips fall where they may. Some will sprout and some won't. I have for many years had this concept that when you talk to somebody about spiritual beliefs, you are planting a seed in their mind. But you know how it is with a seed, right? If you've ever done any gardening, you take a seed, you put it under the ground, and you can't see it. Then you water it, but for a time it will seem like nothing is happening. Right? And then sometimes the seed might not even sprout, but if it does, it can take a while before it comes up. So you have to look at the same thing with other people. You're telling somebody about your spiritual experiences or beliefs, and you're planting a seed that goes into their subconscious mind. And the Ascended Masters have a very important saying. They say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But the student being ready means that the student is open to consider an idea. And it doesn't mean that the student can encounter a teacher before that. But that's when an idea just goes into their subconscious mind, and then it lies there dormant under the ground, and maybe at some point in the future it's going to sprout, and now it's going to come to their conscious awareness and say, oh yeah, now I see what he was trying to tell me 10 years ago. And I've seen that happen with people. And I've also seen that I have told people something, and then a few months later they told me the same thing, but now it was like it was their idea. It was not, they don't remember that I said this to them, but they say it back to me with almost the same words. But they think this is something they saw by themselves. And that's of course fine. I don't need to get the accolades for it. I just need to see people be helped. So what I'm saying is that in this age of mass communication, the fantastic opportunity we have with blogs and videos and websites is we can spread the seed much wider than could be done at Jesus' time. I mean, look at one of the most amazing statements made by Jesus. He that believeth on me shall do the works that I do, and greater works shall you do. Well, Jesus walked around in time and space. And he met many people during his 3-year mission, but it was only in a very localized area in the Middle East. Today, I mean, you could put a video on YouTube and you can reach more people with that video than Jesus reached in his entire lifetime physically. That's part of the greater works that he was talking about. And so, again, you know, I understand perfectly that many spiritual people are reluctant to share their beliefs and experiences because they don't want to be put down. But what I'm saying is this reluctance comes from some subconscious selves you have that want approval. And if you overcome those subconscious selves, your life will be completely transformed because those subconscious selves are limiting you in so many ways where you don't dare to speak up, you don't dare to be yourself, you don't dare to express yourself. You're always thinking, before you do anything, how is this going to be received by others? You're never spontaneous. You're never just flowing with the river of life. You're never just natural. You're always this evaluation. Will I be condemned? Fight or flight response, you know. And so once you overcome this conglomerate of these selves that are really meant to control you and suppress you, prevent you from expressing your spiritual potential and your personal Christhood, once you overcome this, you'll feel so much freer, so much more relaxed, so much more at peace. And it's a complete transformation of your life. And you will look back at it and say, why did I wait so long? And you will also say, it was worth it. Whatever I went through, whatever pain, whatever introspection I had to go through, it was worth it because now I'm free. And if I hadn't dared to put myself out there, I would still be trapped in the same state of consciousness I was in back then. I mean, I probably would have grown since 2002 if I hadn't put myself out there, but not anywhere near as I have done by observing my own reactions to other people's reactions and by freeing myself from my reactions, leaving them free, being totally unconcerned whether they free themselves from their reactions because their reactions isn't my problem. It's not my responsibility. And that's liberation. That's a certain freedom there. That you're not letting your state of mind and your expression depend on other people's reactions to you. You're just being who you are, being yourself as you are in the moment, constantly growing, constantly transcending yourself, but you dare to express yourself. That's freedom.